Now introducing the Minor Wisdom Trio! Minor Wisdom!
This week, I've got Jose Dehoyos on the podcast, and I know last week I said that I may not be here. Well, I have decided that over the next couple weeks, I'll try to work week to week and just get a podcast interview every week, kind of old school. The OGs know what I'm talking about. Yeah, music. There it is. At this point, it's just a thing. Like, I'm not even going to try to fix it because it's like a bit in the podcast. Anyway, so I'm going to go week to week until spring break and then hopefully attack spring break with quite a few interviews. I am going to actually do something I haven't done in quite some time. I'm going to work at my school over spring break a little bit. We are doing The Count of Monte Cristo, and the set is, it's a black box show, and the set is massive. I'm actually we're actually replicating a portion of the Chateau d'If. I don't speak French, but, and so it's really big. So we're going to spend some time over spring break building that. But enough about me. Jose Dehoyos was, I don't mean this to sound I don't mean this to sound rude, and I told him this actually, but I was pleasantly surprised by my interview with him. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't be surprised by a polite, well-spoken person, but, oh, that was a weird laugh. But, you know, Jose self-admittingly is a very quiet individual when he sits back, you know, when he doesn't know who is in the room pretty much. And he's somebody that we've all seen at TXCTA, at Thespians, and not a lot of people have spent the time to get to know him. There are people that do know him. Don't get me wrong. He has friends, you know, in the business too. But the majority of people, you know, I would venture to say quite a few people now know who I am. That, you know, somewhat egotistically, is that egotistically? Anyway, testicular? No. But Jose, people know who he is by face, but they haven't really spent the time to get to know him. And trust me when I tell you this interview will help. Avi. And then what you need to do, and I also need to be better at this, but I kind of have a podcast that's almost at 200 episodes where I do this. But get to know people. And this guy, I didn't have any expectations going into this interview. You know, there are a handful sometimes that I do where I kind of know the reputation of the person, good or bad, and kind of know where the interview might go. And then sometimes I am pleasantly surprised when it goes one way or another. There have been some where I walked in thinking, ooh, high energy, going to be awesome, been around the block, and then it sucks, you know? Not naming names. But then there are some where I don't know the person at all, really, and they are like a Jose, where they're very present, but quiet, right? And this was just awesome. Very succinct, he didn't, as we say in the interview, doesn't mix words, doesn't ums and uhs like I do. It was really fun. Like, I know that my monotone I just heard myself say it was really fun. And I teach acting private lessons, FYI. But I think sometimes I'm quiet on here because I'm actually self-conscious of what my daughters and wife are going to think when they hear me speaking into a microphone all alone in a room, not with no guarantee that anybody's actually listening. So it's kind of like a little bit of a diary at some point. So whatever. You know, there was when I first started this, there was somebody that I thought I would interview people at TTA, at that time TTA, and say, you know, you're going to be on a podcast, blah, blah, blah. Well, this person talked into the microphone like I was on live. They were like, come by the booth. Come by the booth today and we'll give you a deal. I was like, bruh, this isn't going out for a couple weeks, but good. Anyway, so that was fun. This past week, not a lot happening. I think I mentioned last week that I'm now officially on, as much as I can be, on the FODMAP diet, and also trying to cut as much milk because I do have a milk allergy, so that could be my issue. But I will say that the week has been good. My stomach feels better. So if you're rooting for my medical health, thanks. But yeah, things have been much better with that, and so I'm happy about that. So the FODMAP diet is not easy, but it's doable. It's just one of those. It's very German. It's like meat and potatoes, and you can't have garlic or onions, wheat, anything like that. So yeah. On a sort of somber note and sad note, the theater world, especially the local Houston theater world, lost a really talented sound designer and sound engineer, Pierre Dupree, who was at the Alley for the last 15 years. And I'm not sure on details on how he passed. I don't really care. People pass away, and then what are you going to, based on how they passed, what are you personally going to do? Maybe you donate some money. And speaking of that, they have set up a scholarship in his name for his kids. He's got I believe two kids. So they're setting up a college scholarship that you can donate to Pierre's Kids College Fund. And it's just a sad thing, when somebody passes away. That's, I didn't know Pierre very well. I did work with him when I was over hire as an electrician at the Alley. I didn't work directly with him, but, we crossed paths and said our, hellos and such to each other. But I have friends, good friends, some very good friends that were very close with him and worked with him quite a bit. And so it's just a sad little somber moment when somebody passes away, but especially when somebody is affected by somebody that passes away. So, death is not about the dead, it's about the living. And you want to make sure that people are respecting it and honoring it. And so if you knew Pierre, or if you just want to sort of reach out to people that are affiliated with the Alley or have been affiliated with the Alley, I would highly recommend it. And maybe even donate to his kids' college scholarship. All that said, I don't mean to bring us down, but I do want you to very much enjoy this podcast, this interview with Jose Dehoyos. He, again, I've already said it, but it needs to be said again. There's so much inspiration that happens in this interview. I was just kind of sitting there, and you'll hear the interview, but I mentioned a couple things, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but I hope you enjoy it. It's a very good one. I would highly recommend it. I have a friend that tells me that they listen every once in a while to an interview and would appreciate it when I would tell him, this one's a good one. This one you need to listen to. So Kevin, this is a good one. Listen to this one. Everybody enjoy your week. Thanks to the person that bought a shirt this past week. Buy a shirt. Why not? Sport the Minor Wisdom swag. Have a great week, everybody.
I am a theater arts teacher in San Antonio, Texas, and I have been a theater teacher this is my 29th year. I know, right? Who knew? I started teaching as an accident, actually. I wanted to be actually a theme park producer at Disney World. I thought that was going to be my bag after I graduated. But what happened, I guess, was I graduated in December, and from Incarnate Word. I'd also gone to Palo Alto College when Palo Alto was still relatively new. And when I graduated, my junior college professor, my coordinator said, "Hey, there's a position opening in the fall. I know you just graduated, in December, and you're trying to get money saved up and stuff. And why don't you apply for this job? I gave him your name, and you can, just work a year or whatever, and then, get going to Florida, do your thing." So I said, like, they'll even hire me. I said, come on. So I didn't even have certification. I didn't even know what, and I knew what I was like in high school. I was like, this is not going to end well. And so I went and did the interview, and they said, when can you start? And I said, wow, this is real. Okay. So I started the next week, and because the school year had started, it was a weekend. So I started week 2 and went through like training and stuff, and then was with the kids week 3. And so that was my throw in into the high school. And I started with high school, and I had to float. Yeah, that was fun. And I was at Southside High School, and so we didn't have a facility at the time, so that was interesting. And so one of the things that I still remember from that first year, that first week, we had a faculty meeting, and they would not let me into the meeting. The librarian, Miss Hitzfelder, yeah, she sounds exactly like her name. She's like, "You can't come in here. This is only for faculty." I was like, "I am faculty." She goes, "Get out of here, you little whippersnapper," kind of thing. And I was a small little waif of a child, and she would not let me in. And the principal had to come and get me. It's like, "No, this is our new theater teacher." And she apologized profusely. And then I was introduced at that meeting, and people looked at me like I was like blood for punishment, and stayed there for 8 years. Had a facility built. Went to Northside ISD. Opened 2 high schools in Northside, and got my certification through Texas State University. I went to, and let me see. From there, I went to get my master's degree in admin, educational administration. I said I want to do something with it, so I became an administrator for a year, and that killed my soul. And left, Northside to go to Edgewood, and went back to the classroom. I went to South San for 2 years, did middle school, and then I went and opened Cast Down. I've been in Cast Down for the last 5 years. So this is year 29, and I'm doing dual credit theater. I also I went back to also for my second master's degree for theater, and so I teach also adjunct at San Antonio College. Paulo Rodriguez was the one who hired me, so Paulo Rodriguez is was my mentor. Charles Jeffries was my mentor. He was my first high school theater teacher before he left to MacArthur. I know, right? Craziness. But these are things that just people don't, I guess, realize that I have all these connections through people. I'm kind of a quiet person till you get to know me, and then when you get to know me, I don't shut up. So I'm kind of that kind of person. But it's really kind of fun. I did theme park for 5 years at SeaWorld, and that's why I wanted to go to Disney. And that was my dream, was I wanted to work and produce shows at Disney, and then go into cruise ships. And then what happened was that I just loved doing it, loved teaching. And so I said, well, maybe one more year. And then after the 8 years at Southside, there was no more years. I just said, no, this is it. And so now I not only do theater in school, I've started going back I went back to Six Flags and started doing some work there. I stage manage. I've done shows. I've been a walk around actor. I've done things like that. I've done community theater here. I now also lead a LGBTQIA theater company here called Players at the Point in San Antonio. And so I do a little bit of everything. It's just kind of whatever people need me to do. We do a show called, of course, The Golden Girls, and so I play Dorothy from The Golden Girls. I play B. Arthur's role, which people just say, "Man, you are just the perfect Dorothy." I'm like, well, I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, but thank you. So that's a little bit about what I do and where I'm at.
Yeah.
I love what I do, and I'm always doing it. I stay at school pretty late. I'm one of the first ones there, one of the last ones to leave every day. There's only 22 of us on staff, so I leave at the same time usually as the custodians.
Wow.
Which is funny. Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, are you rehearsing, or are you there just kind of?
Yeah. We have
Okay.
rehearsal.
Okay.
So we rehearse Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, basically,
Okay.
till 7:30, and then custodians are only there till 7:30
Yeah.
because really there's 22 teachers.
Right.
We have more staff members. We have some office staff and stuff
Right.
like that. But in terms of teachers, we're only 22 of us.
Right. Wow. Okay.
I'm the only arts teacher.
Wow. Like not just performing arts, just
Totally.
arts at all. Okay. Wow.
Right.
Do you
Everybody goes through me as a freshman.
do you teach anything else other than theater? Like, do they have you teach?
So I do professional communications.
Okay.
So the CTE version of speech.
Okay.
And that was my minor. And then I also have taught team building at the
Okay.
college level.
Yeah.
And I've done leadership, and I do workshops on team building and stuff.
Okay.
So I get called to do things like that. I'm also a choreographer.
Yeah.
So I've done thespians for choreography, and I've done some other work with different organizations, SAC summer camps, and UIL, TETA,
Right.
TXETA.
Yeah.
Now,
Get it right,
so
man.
I've done it all. Well, I'm kind of old school like that, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
Right. Well, that's fun. Yeah. I mean, so you said something that I was like, yeah, that's the Jose I know, is the quiet, the listener,
Right.
kind of sit back and just, I guess recently, I don't know if it's because of this podcast or because I'm more active in things, but you and I have had conversations where I'm like, oh, he does speak, right? And so
Right.
when he does have, it's great to have a teacher that can have a voice too.
Right.
But so that is, I don't know where that stems from. Maybe you can speak on that, but you are a great, well, I don't know if you're actually listening. You are, you look like you're listening. You look like you're always engaged. But where does that come from? Your just ability to kind of sit back, kind of soak it in, and then find your spot.
That's a great point. So, when I was younger, my parents wanted me to become a lawyer. So I took a lot of things I know. So I took a lot of courses and stuff in terms of body language and nonverbal cues and stuff. So I spent a lot of time like watching people. That's a skill that I enjoy. And so when I first meet people, or even after I meet people, I study them. And so I learn a lot by what I see. And so that's one of the things I love to do is just watch people. So unless people are directly engaged with me, I really just kind of sit back and just kind of watch relationships either develop or destroy each other,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. I tell my principal, like, you better watch this couple because things are about to happen. I promise you.
Yeah.
It's like, you can feel the tension in the air, and she's like, no, I'm sure. Nope. I said, come sixth period, watch. I'll bet money on it. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You can tell every period it's going to get worse. And sure enough, it's just something that I just feel, people are like, and I'm kind of, and it's funny because I'm kind of the Norma Ray of my campus. I'm very outspoken.
Right.
And so, I'm very, direct.
Right.
When I speak. So when I do speak, I'm very direct in my communication. I know what to say and when to say it.
Right.
I don't just randomly kind of shoot off my mouth or whatever. I'm very opinionated, but I'm very direct in that approach and tell, not only what I feel, but how can we correct the problem? What can we do to fix it or to re-look at the issue and make it something better than what it is.
Right.
So
yeah, that's good. You don't mix words and stuff.
No, I'm too old for that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I tell everybody is that this year that I work with is don't push me. I said you know, my foot can go 1 foot out the door
Yeah.
already. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's there. It's there. You don't want to push it. You don't
Yeah.
want to push it. And they're like, no, don't do it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do it. I just think it's funny that I could do it.
Yeah. Y-
It's just one of those things. Just to know that you can do it is
Yeah.
is exciting. I'm not going to do it because
Yeah.
I think I would just die if I didn't, have my job.
Right.
I
Yeah.
love it.
And there are like I know quite a few theater teachers, especially. I think it's more so theater teachers than a lot of other professions in education, but where we're like, yeah, it's time to retire, substitute teach the next year, and then
Right.
and then it's like there's something that we need to, there's some thirst we need to quench, that when it comes to this profession. So we don't like to
Right.
sitting at home and doing nothing is not our idea of fun. So
Right.
yeah,
And I'm looking at, I just went to workshops, of course, at the Thespian Educator Conference
yeah,
on like SEL
yeah,
and intimacy, and I'm really interested in learning more about that. Those are things that I think I would be interested in doing after I retire.
right,
So I'm considering training. We do a lot of SEL on our campus, so that's something that I'm really interested in kind of pursuing
right,
as like a fallback.
yeah,
Going and doing some workshops on educating teachers.
yeah, yeah. That's yeah, great. That's and you'd be good at it, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would listen.
Oh, thank
So
you.
there are a couple. I mean, you're. I really, I hope this doesn't anger other people that have been on this podcast, but I really liked your introduction of yourself. It actually, now that you say you don't mix words and you're very succinct, it makes a lot of sense. But sometimes I'll have somebody talk for 45 minutes and I won't write a single note because they never said anything. And, if that makes sense. And
Yes.
you did not talk that long about yourself, maybe 10 minutes, and I have tons of notes because it just you made me think of so many little things. But I want to first say it seems like you have a really great memory, or at least because you were recalling things from your first year or two teaching, the first couple weeks that
Right.
like I remember where I taught my first year, but I don't remember much more than that. And a couple of the shows that we did and stuff, but you to recall um, something that happened to you for your first meeting, your first faculty meeting and all that kind of stuff. I don't have a question. I just letting you know I was impressed that
Well, thank you.
you have that good of a memory. But um, I guess the question we can roll into, you mentioned that you uh, did the administrator thing, right?
Right.
And anytime I hear somebody talk about that, and especially the way you did, I mentioned how I also, I have an ME in administration and did the internship thing, and I was like, I don't like this, right? As a principal, shall I say, not as like a coordinator or anything like that, but as a campus principal, and I just absolutely hated it because of just what it didn't give me as a theater teacher. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about 2 minutes ago about theater teachers are different type of people, different breed, right?
Right.
So
Right.
what is it about kind of your experience rolling through administration or dabbling in that world that that kind of turned you off a little bit?
Well, I think part of it is the politics of it. There's a politic that we don't necessarily have to worry so much about. When we're creating art, uh, because that's what we do is we're creating art. I mean, there's not so many things that we have to worry about. I mean, we do have to get approval. We do have to say, hey, these are the shows I'm looking at, or these are the ballots of how they did, or whatever the case may be. But when you're constantly being barraged by parents or by deadlines of we have to do fire drills, or we have to do textbook check in, or we have to do menial stuff, that's not for me creative. I can't find a creative outlet with that. It becomes menial to me. It becomes rote, and I think that type of thing is what uh, it just becomes very hard to handle. Uh, Also, being in a district that was not very supportive in terms of training new administrators coming in. There was a lot of turmoil in the district, and so I came in turmoil. I was hired by a superintendent that left 3 days after I was hired. He hired me, and then he left 3 days after, and so I had like a bullseye on my back almost the entire year. Anybody that was hired by him, kind of thing, by the board, and so it just seemed like there was always people that you had to like watch your back, and that was tiring. And so you never knew who your. It was always like it felt like high school. It felt like you were in high school again, even though I was with a high school. It felt like sorry, my dogs are going. Even though I had sorry,
It's okay.
Even though we had that's my Chihuahua girl. Even though we have a high school that we're having to run, then at that moment, I'm having to worry about, okay, I need help, but can I call this person?
Yeah.
But if I call this person, then this person is going to call this person, say this, and throw me under the bus.
Right.
So let me call this person, and hopefully this person can help me because maybe they have the answer in so many ways that I can not have to call this person. And so it was like, going through the district directory, like putting and this was a friend of mine who worked in the district who told me put like a plus or a minus next to the people that, he told me who to call and who not to call.
Right.
So, and it was sad,
Yeah.
these were hard truths.
Interesting.
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's so you had a much more unique situation. Mine was just come intern at the school you've been teaching at and deal with the behavior issues.
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah.
And I had an opportunity to really do some things and I couldn't. It caused me also, and to be honest and be, for people who know my journey and
Yeah.
know people who know me direct, and this is something you may not know, is that I'm sober, and so one of the things that it caused was me to relapse into drinking
Oh.
hard, and so that was when I hit bottom
Right.
again, and so I had to get sober again after that.
Right. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
How long are you going now, if you don't mind
This
me
is
asking?
I'll be year 7 in
Okay.
August.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Do you have chips?
I do.
Okay.
I
I
do.
mean, they look like poker chips, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I found
I get the
ironic.
bougie ones.
Yeah. Okay.
I get the bougier ones. Yeah, I don't like those smaller ones. So I order mine and get the little gold plated or
Yeah.
yeah.
A
I like
platinum
the little
record.
cute ones. Yeah, I like the ones that have like the little red or the little green or I like them that look a little more like Liberace-ish. I
Okay,
don't know.
I got you. I like it. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good for you. That's very that's inspirational, and I hope people that may have a similar story or similar currently a struggle kind of feed off of that a little bit because that'd be good.
Right.
So you did answer about Charles Jeffries because I wrote down at the beginning, where did you or who was your theater teacher, but what you didn't answer was when were you kind of bit by the bug?
So I started theater. Actually, remember this is the '80s, right? '70s and '80s. So I'm 52. So when I started theater, it was 1977, and I was a third grader, and I was in Alice in Wonderland in third grade. I was the dormouse. So I have to thank my music teacher because the music teacher did a musical play every year. So
Yeah.
I was in that show. That first year, I was Little John and Robin Hood the year after, the Disney version. These are Disney versions.
Yeah.
And then the following year, I think it was something like Charlie Brown, but I wasn't. I was in the chorus in that year. So it was very interesting. But then when we got to middle school, we didn't have theater in middle school in the '80s. We had UIL events. So during that time, I did duet pantomime.
Right.
We could only do one event, and I don't know why I signed up for duet pantomime because I can't shut up.
Yeah.
So that was was an oxymoron in itself.
They were like speech tournaments, right? I mean, they were like these theater
Correct.
speech. Yeah, I did those too. Yeah.
So I did duet pantomime. I think it was because my best friend in middle school was doing it. And he wanted me to do it with him. And it's funny because, excuse me, one of the girls that I did duet pantomime, her and her partner, she is also working in my district. She works in the business office.
Wow.
So it's really funny that, we were working together in the same offices, basically right around the corner from each other. And she's like, hey, I got your check ready. I'm like, oh my God. She goes, I can't believe you're still doing theater. I said, oh my God, please stop. It's so funny the way we talk to each other. But then I went to high school and I did tech theater the first year because I saw the plays and I was like, I was amazed by the technical aspects of it. And I was like, I wanted to do that. And I was like, oh my God, this looks amazing. I wasn't really impressed with the acting thing yet because I had to do duet pantomime.
Right.
And I hated it. And I was like, okay, let me just do tech. And I love Jeffries. I mean, he was like the bomb,
Yeah.
And then I signed up for theater for the next year and then he left. And I was like, oh shit. I'm sorry. Can I say that?
You're okay. Yeah.
Okay. So then we had a theater teacher the following year.
Yeah.
I won't mention his name. He's since passed, but he was arrested for doing things he shouldn't have done.
Sure.
So yeah, and that was halfway through the year, and so that was a sad thing. And then we had our third, and we only had one teacher at the time. MacArthur was like one of the only schools that had two theater teachers, and that was Jeffries and Munoz. Right. And so, of course, they were the powerhouse team at that time. And so, my junior and senior year, we had the same teacher, but he was a tech teacher. And which is funny because Jay, for the next few years, had nothing but tech teachers. So he kind of got the short end of the stick. So I really didn't really get acting training until college.
And that was Incarnate Word, right? That's what you said.
Palo Alto first.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's right.
And then Incarnate Word.
That's right.
And then Incarnate Word.
Okay. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, do you have tech? I mean, do you still do tech things? I mean, assuming you do a little
bit.
Yeah.
Some. I'm not the best in tech, but yeah, I still do it. I mean, I love to surprise myself with things. I have a good eye with things, and I tell kids, okay, this is what I kind of see, and then I'm like, I kind of maybe draw it out or whatever, and they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Like I surprise myself sometimes that I can still come up with it, but I've done it for so long now. Because when I was at Southside, I was by myself, so I did a lot of stuff. Right. So I did a lot of stuff, but we didn't have really a shop. So I really just used the UIL set, and I really didn't know what I was doing because I was still trying to learn what to do to be a teacher. So I had to kind of go back to school. I had to take a directing 2 class, and I had to take some other classes to kind of get myself certified. And then when I got to Northside, I had by that point felt more confident about my abilities. I was at Sol Ross Middle School for 1 year, the first year, but then they transferred me to Jay, and I was at my home campus, and I was the tech teacher for 2 years. So I really honed up on my skill by that point. But then I was moved to Stevens. I opened Stevens that year, and I was at Stevens for the next 5 years, and I was the head director. I was tech and head the first year, but by the time I left 4 years later, there were 3.5 drama teachers.
Oh wow!
So I built that program to over 400 kids.
Wow.
Yeah. And then that next year we opened with 2 theater teachers at Brennan.
Okay.
So the tech teacher had nothing but tech and I had nothing but theater. And so I had stopped doing theater by that point for 10 years already.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Again, the memory.
I'm trying to remember.
So
like an elephant, I forget.
Do you ever run into students at Six Flags?
Oh,
when you're a character or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, sir, hello, how are you?
What type of character do you play?
Oh, so I'm the mayor. So I'm a may or may not.
Okay.
Yeah. May or may not.
Do you pattern it after anybody or anything?
It's a 50s kind. Well, it's a 50s mayor.
Okay.
So he's in the 50s area of Six Flags.
Okay.
But he can actually roam. back when the Six Flags Fiesta Texas first opened, there were 4 mayors. So I remember one of them was Oscar Mayer, which was in the German area,
Yeah.
and there was Montemayor,
Yeah.
Monty Mayor, and then there was a Mayor May Not, which was the 50s. But I can't remember the one in the country area. But anyway, May or May Not became like the one that would circle around the entire park.
Wow.
But they kept me basically in the 50s and the front gate, which is the Fiesta area.
Right.
So I would walk that entire kind of route and do that. So when I'd see people, it's like, "Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome to Six Flags Fiesta, Texas." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I hope you have a great time.
I bet they got
So
a
it would
kick
just
out of
be-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd have a great time, and they, the costumes were funny. There were just plaid vests and plaid shirt, bow tie, and the little 50s kind of
Yeah.
hat.
The wafer hat. Yeah.
Yeah. Cane. I would walk with a cane.
That's pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
My little tech tip for this week is UIL related. Maybe the next few will be UIL related. But I've had quite a few people actually ask me about adding more UIL set pieces to their show. Quite a few, actually. Almost double digits, actually. Can I say actually a couple more times? Actually, I can. Yes. You can add, let me say that again without choking. You can add set pieces from the UIL unit set to your show with permission. You cannot do it without permission. So make sure that if you are adding a pylon, an extra door, this or that, if your script calls for doors, that's different. But I shouldn't have used doors as an example. But pylons, stairs, all that stuff, ask permission, bruh. And then I did want to ask about, you said you worked at SeaWorld.
I did.
And and then you wanted to go on a cruise. I don't want to get into the controversies of SeaWorld itself because I don't, we don't.
Yeah, that's
it's not a podcast about that. But
right.
What was fun about SeaWorld? Like I remember going there as a kid. We would drive to San Antonio SeaWorld. That was kind of like a vacation spot for us coming out of Houston. And it was, as a kid, I just remember being like, this place is just so cool. You learn things as an adult later, but what for you was kind of an entertaining bit?
I think it was because we were human characters or human performers in a marine mammal park.
Right.
I think that was part of the fun and this joy. We did, I was a costume character for years. I did human character, human dancer for years. It was a combination of things. I was also a lead stage manager. We did parade, which was a lot of fun. We would do a parade.
Yeah.
Do like this really kind of cool Bring on the Nights, it was called, and we would dance to like hot. We had to learn these dances called the Penguin Hop, and the band was mad at us that night. They would play the Penguin Hop over and over again, make us get out of those pedicabs and make us dance the entire way. It was really cool. So it was just a lot of joy.
Right.
The things that we would do it brought a lot of joy, and it was so new, it was so fresh.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the joy of it. It was. I started there in '89, which was the year after the park opened. So I was there from '89 to '93.
Oh wow!
So it's still very new.
Yeah.
In terms of the shows and stuff.
Okay, I guess I didn't realize it opened in '88. So
yeah, that was the first year.
I feel like I was there earlier than that, but my memory is not as elephant-like as yours. So but that's funny. So that you mentioned the band thing, and this again, this is where my mind goes. So I did this gig for a summer at Space Center Houston, right out of high school, and it was similar to it wasn't anything like what you did at SeaWorld, but what it was is there was no script. It was almost we did 5 shows a day, and they were 30-minute shows, and every show was different. We had bullet points we had to hit, but it would when we would go eat lunch and something would be said at lunch, or somebody would bring up a joke, or we would throw in inside jokes, into the show that not a single person, paying
Right.
audience, would understand, but it made us, crack up. So
Right.
it's funny that you mentioned the band thing, because it's like, well, nobody watching you knows that the band is doing this to you. They think they're doing it
Right.
for you,
Well, it's funny that you say that because, when we would perform on stage, right, we had a stage that had speakers above us and speakers under us. So we can hear each other talk on stage, but the audience can't. So we would talk and say like horrible things to each other, or we would do like horrible things, and, or we'd look at each other and like make these looks at each other and do
Yeah.
things. And, we know what we were doing, but like the audience had no idea what we were doing. Like they were like clueless. And it's like, oh, look at the animals. They're so cute. It's like, yeah, we are, aren't we? We're being cute.
Yeah.
We sure are something right now.
It is funny. Yeah. Just those little things are that's what keeps some of that fun, especially when it's repetitive, when you're doing the same thing.
Right. We did 8 shows a day.
Yeah.
In those costumes. So 30-minute shows, right? So we did 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out. And so it was a lot of 6 days a week. So you had to figure out, okay, this is good. This is going to get old real quick.
Right.
Luckily for me, though, I was a swing. So back then I was able to swing into 5 different characters, or 4. I did 4 characters during the first 2 years, or first couple of years. And then I swung 5 characters after that.
So you didn't get as sort of repetitive as some of the other.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. The first year I stayed in one costume, and then I did 2 years swinging.
Another thing you mentioned is cruise ship, and that you had planned on doing something like that. So do you, because one of the things I tell my students, like, I don't regret a lot, right? But one of the things I do regret is I wish, I had gone on a cruise ship for 6 months, or signed like a 6-month contract or a 12-month something, because I ended up doing a very short cruise when Straight No Chaser had a cruise. I worked that cruise, and that was my 5 days or 4 days of experience with it, and I loved it. And I thought I should have done this. Like, I should have done.
Right.
I know people get tired of it, right? You get very tired of cruises, but I will now tell my students, like, if you want to go into the entertainment industry and you are thinking about that gap year or something like that in between high school and college, or even during college, taking a couple months off, try to get a job on a cruise ship, because you're not paying for anything.
Right.
And it's a great way to save money and get the experience and see wherever you're going, see those landmarks. So do you feel some certain way now, almost 30 years? Yeah. We'll speak on it. Yeah.
Regret. My mother and father, and God love them. I love my family. But I do have of course the Mexican family regret. You can't leave because this is, and I am truly a mama's boy and stuff. And so it was very difficult for me to try to do something, because I would always get the guilt trip. Nowadays, I don't fall necessarily into that guilt trip as much anymore, because I know I kind of like beat to my own drum a lot more. And they're very supportive. I mean, don't get me wrong, but back then, because I was the first child,
right.
I am the first child. I had to set the tone for the other two. I had to be the disciplined one. I had to show what it was like to be the adult male of the family. Getting the college degree and going into the workforce right away, and doing all those things that I was expected to do. And so it made it difficult. It was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure not to do it in 4 years. Let me tell you, because I did it in 5, and 5.5, 5. I can't remember, but it was tough, because there were a couple of moments where I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I was not a straight A student. I mean, I was just not a straight A student. I was a weak student. I was like a C student, B student. Was lazy. I'm still lazy. I mean, I know that at times, but my when it comes to my learning or whatever now, it's like, okay, when it's time to jam, I'm on it. Like when it's time to like research plays and stuff, I'm on it. But when it's my home life or whatever, I'm done. Like,
Right.
you know, don't talk to me until Monday, or don't talk to me. Like if I know that I'm off for whatever time, like if I'm off from like 4 to 8, don't talk to me from 4 to 8.
Right.
If I'm going to be on, a show at 8 o'clock, and I have to be there at 7, don't talk to me from 5 to 7. Let me get in mode. Let me have my moment so I can get real, get kind of, situated, and then I'm fine. Because I just need that time because I do so much. If you saw my planner, and I use a paper planner. I do. I still use a paper planner because I have to write it down. I have to see it and I have to look at it and like, okay, can I make this happen? It's like, and then I have to like go back and say, no, I can't make this happen. Originally, I was supposed to be in a show right now that I wound up having to say no to. That actually rehearsal started this week, and because I said, I got called to do a class at SAC on Monday nights, along with now, of course, UIL, and I was like, there's just no more time in the day. I said, if I didn't have the night class, I could maybe swing, and like miss here or whatever, or just kind of, come late to rehearsal. And the director was willing to meet me halfway. But I said, I'm going to miss Mondays altogether now. I said, I can't do it. I said, I'm not going to put y'all through it
Yeah, I'm glad
or
you
make
said.
myself crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Because mental health and taking care of yourself right now is a huge thing, right? It's
Right.
making sure that you're working smarter, not harder. There was somebody posted on Facebook, and I'm not going to name names or anything, but they were talking about how they
Ooh, name them. Name them. Just
no,
kidding.
we can talk afterwards. But
Yeah.
they were talking about how they got sick, and they told their doctor, "Well, I can't miss UIL rehearsal because I have a clinic this weekend," and blah 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 blah. And I posted on their Facebook, and I meant it. UIL is not worth your health, and
Right.
I think this state. I have my UIL opinions because I grew up in the state, but I did not grow up in the system, and and I love UIL now. I appreciate UIL now. I understand why UIL is important and generates the jobs that we have. And you spoke on, you built a program up to 400 kids, and some of that may be because of UIL. It's hard to measure that, right? But but it's not worth. It's not.
Right.
It's just not worth your own personal health. And also, I'm now a big time believer, um, and I'm not in the UIL system now, being in private schools, but I'm a big time believer. If I ever go back to public, that my daughters come first. Like I'm going to make sure that my time as a father is more important to everyone. And just like you're talking about your time as a son and making sure that you're with family and taking your own breaks. And so I've said enough, but I very much appreciate that you said that. So
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's funny, being in the system as a student and now a teacher and being a teacher. At the beginning, of course, that was all that I was told is that you have to win, and that's fine. If I win, I win. At this point, it doesn't bother me now. My goal now, this late in my career, is like I want to have fun. I want to do things that make people turn heads and say, "Oh, wow, that's crazy. That's fun." Uh, if it wins, it wins. If it
yeah,
doesn't, it doesn't.
yeah,
My kids are winners. My kids don't take an acting class.
right,
We don't have a production class. We rehearse 3 days a week.
yeah,
We still got alternate to regional last year. So, and this was our second year competing.
yeah,
So we did something right,
yeah,
So whatever happens, and everybody's opinion is different. So we could roll well this year. We could roll bad this year. It doesn't matter. I tell the kids, just try your best. I'm not gonna fault you.
right,
Of course, I'm making my fine arts department crazy because I'm like, oh, I need to order this. Oh, I want this, and they're like, you spent a lot of money. Like, I don't have a department. Sorry. I don't have a shop.
Yeah.
I don't have a shop teacher. I don't have, sorry guys.
Yeah.
You want me to do well at a 5.8 level with two, with a, what is it? I only have basically a 1A population. I said,
Right.
come on guys.
Yeah.
I need your help.
Amazon is your shop. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I just picked up some Amazon stuff on my porch.
So,
and I just went to Hobby Lobby before I came here.
Yeah, well, yeah, Hobby Lobby and I, Hobby Lobby doesn't like my people as much, but anyway,
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, that's fair.
I run out like this.
We can commiserate. Yeah, that's true.
With my Pride shoes, actually.
So
that I was wearing today.
Good segue. You mentioned quickly the Golden Girls group. What is the group name that you? It's not obviously not the Golden Girls. It's trademarked.
No, Players at the Point is what
Players at the Point. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just is it a theater troupe or is it?
It's a troupe. We are not situated completely yet as a completely separate entity.
Right.
But we do perform out of a LGBTQ friendly community center called Woodlawn Point.
Okay.
And so that's why we're Players at the Point.
Got it.
And so we do compete, not compete. See, I said compete again.
Yeah.
We do perform there. We started before COVID had hit.
Right.
And we had really started kind of getting momentum, and then COVID hit. And so now it's like we're back to square one. So we're having to like restart kind of and refocus our energy to do it. It's just a matter of now, what is it that people want? And so obviously we just performed last week, Golden Girls. We just did a 4-day weekend, and we had made quite a bit of money for the community center. So we did something right. So we know that that's what they want. They want some of this, they want humor, they want camp, they want this.
Yeah.
There is a troupe in Dallas that also uses some of these type of shows. And we have contacted one of the authors who does Gilligan on Fire Island. And so we're hoping to do that show coming up as well. And then we're going to do a Pride version of Golden Girls coming up. And so there's those. But then we also do things like we did Harvey Fierstein a couple of months back. Right. And so we're doing, although we're doing real literature as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at your Facebook, the Facebook page for it. So I'm going to ask an ignorant, straight man question. Do you shave when you?
Yeah, no, that's not an ignorant question at all. Yeah, I'm just actually now growing back my beard. So I don't know if you remember, I had a goatee.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just finally growing it back.
Because the picture, this picture of the Golden Girls, the four of
you see it?
is amazing. And just for people listening, it's Point with an E. So Players at the Point, with an E. I love this. This is great. The funny thing about my connection to the Golden Girls is it's the one show my parents refused to let me watch as a child. But then when our babysitter Peggy, who I still know well, would come over, she would let us stay up and watch Golden Girls. So that was my like rebellious childhood, was the Golden Girls. So
well, back in the 80s, it was so racy.
Yeah, it was.
And really, the material now, people don't understand. Like it was ahead of its time in terms of material.
Yeah.
And so when people come to see the show, the co-producers and I, that we put this together, we asked, they asked me, should we put like a disclaimer on it? I said, they didn't put a disclaimer in the 80s. We're not changing the lines. We're on some of these things. We're not adding, F-bombs or anything.
Right.
We're leaving the subject matter as is. So I don't see why we need to put a disclaimer if we're just leaving some of these issues intact.
Yeah.
So, it's funny because these are still touchy issues today.
Yeah.
Some of these hot issues that, certain groups seem to have a problem with, like women's issues, for example, and LGBT and just whatever, just those issues that people seem to have. So,
well, good, very inspirational chat. Because I love I love where you stand. I love your the head on your shoulders, if you will. This isn't an ad for a shampoo, but I think it's I very much enjoy it, and I am personally, I do this podcast very selfishly because I don't really care if people listen. I do it because I like to get to know the individuals that are my peers, right? And so
Right.
for that, I appreciate it. I want to get you out on this. This is a question I ask often, but it's relevant. I enjoy the answers to these questions. So you've now been in the classroom for 29 years, and you mentioned it wasn't something that initially you thought you were going to do. It wasn't in the cards at the point, and then 8 years later, you're like, "Yep, this is great." What does 29-year in Jose want to tell, or if you could tell, 2 week into school year, Jose, the one that got kicked out of the library, if you could go back and tell that Jose some bit of advice or some sort of like encouragement, what do you think you would say?
Oh man, I think I would tell that Jose to relax. Don't take it so seriously. Uh, Enjoy every moment. Uh, I think letting letting my guard down and really kind of asking for help from some of the teachers around me. There were some great mentors around me that I really didn't know were around me at the time because I didn't know who people were, and I didn't know how to ask for help. I was kind of embarrassed to do so. So I think that those types of things uh, are very important now. I think as a new theater teacher who doesn't know what to do, uh, because it's great when you learn all the books and you read all, the material, and you're like, I just did these classes, I know how to do warm ups, I know how to teach, I do an acting course or whatever, and then you're actually teaching kids, and you're like, shit, uh, maybe I don't know how to teach this, everything you thought you knew is put to the test, and so I think another thing is to be flexible. uh, there's got to be a flexibility that you've got that I needed to learn. And I think that at first I was really dead set against it because everything I thought I knew was right. And it had to be that way because this is how the people I knew taught me. And this was the way of the world. This is how it had to be done. And, I think I uh, was very harsh at the beginning. I was like a, cutthroat battle axe kind of, director at the beginning. But, I softened because I learned that's not how this works. There's too many stories of older directors and how they work. Uh, and and I don't want to be considered one of those directors. I want to be considered a director who made a difference and who really worked. And I had those role models, and I need to remember that. I need to tell that Jose, you need to remember what this person taught you, or this person taught you, and not worry so much, and to follow and to like find these people, like find the Paulo Rodriguez's and find call Charles right away, and like I didn't know where he went, because remember we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have internet, we didn't have any of this, so I didn't know where any of this was going on. I was like, how do I get a hold of people, you know TXETA? I went in the first couple of years and I didn't know crap. I didn't know anybody there. People knew everybody and they would hug and kiss everybody, and I was like, I feel stupid. I don't know who people are. And so I think it now means, to let myself uh, absorb it all, and like you made that mention of me observing. Not only observe, but to also accept, and just be willing to meet and to speak, to communicate with people, not just observe and take in, but to do something with it.
Minor wisdom.